Benjamin Lindsay here, managing editor at Backstage, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to the first ever Backstage Fest. Over the course of 14 virtual events with over 45 guest speakers, audiences are invited to take an inside look at what goes into making a small screen series a hit. Whether you're interested in acting on camera, writing, directing, and producing your own material, or working behind the scenes as on-set crew, Backstage Fest has something for everyone. So be sure to head on over to backstage.com/magazine, where we have a running schedule of our 3 days of events. Today, we're very lucky to be joined by Kathryn Hahn. In just the last few years, Hahn has led series like I Love Dick, Mrs. Fletcher, and Transparent, and films like Private Life. But earlier this year marked her buzziest role yet, playing Agatha Harkness on Marvel and Disney Plus's WandaVision. The long-adored actor has proven over her 20-plus years on screen that she really can do it all, and I'm so thrilled to speak with her about it all. So, Kathryn, thank you so much for joining us. This is such a personal treat, and I appreciate you sharing your time with us.
Oh, Ben, it's so my pleasure, and I'm so excited for this series that you're doing. I can't wait to hear all the interviews you're about to do. This is very exciting.
Yeah, we have quite the rollout,
I hear.
And
Yeah.
it's the kind of programming that we at Backstage have really been prioritizing over the last 14 months. People, at least until recently, were stuck at home, and you got to look out for the artists and offer them some educational opportunities. So we really are fortunate to have you partaking in that.
Oh, so my pleasure.
I guess the best place to start is with this series, WandaVision. I feel like while we were stuck at home for the last handful of months, you were keeping us entertained as Agatha Harkness. What's the response been like for you, just to be kind of the receiver of such positive responses?
I mean, it's so weird, Ben, because as you said, I've been doing this for a minute, a long minute. So for it to be for something like this is, like you said, the buzziest is like, what? But I mean, it's very trippy, and also for it to happen during this period of time of like just like in my garage, like I wish I could turn my camera around. Like there's the Peloton bike that's like dusty. It's like it's just very the whole thing is very trippy. I have no social media, even though I lurk around every once in a while. Sorry, huge truck going by, but glamour, and then I wish I could turn it around. But I've been hearing, of course, and like my friends send me the meme, and it's just so trippy. I'm totally like flattered and tickled, and it's also like, yeah, then the work goes on. It just feels like it just goes like this. Like it's like I know that it's like it's a real sweet minute, and then I'm trying to enjoy it because nothing lasts, and then you just keep working.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the work does always go on, but just as a longtime admirer of your work, I'm excited by the fact that it's happening to you, of all people.
Oh, Ben, that means a ton. Thank you.
Now, when it comes to joining the MCU, just obviously Backstage is all about kind of the nitty-gritty acting of it all. So were there any specific first-time things that you checked off your boxes as an actor in doing this show?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think I'd worked with a green screen really ever, if that much. I certainly hadn't worked with stunts to this degree ever. I had always had a hesitancy as an actor to let anybody else do stunts. Like I want to own everything. It's like I'm greedy with the parts I play. I want to be the whole of it. And so the kind of surrender Dorothy, no pun intended, that being in the MCU kind of requires was like took me a hot second. But then, when I didn't have to do any of that during the decades, like that was all me, like during the Agnes portion. But once it became Agatha, it was, it became, there were so many women involved that there was something when I was first lifted in the wires and I was able to look down and see my stunt double Whitney, who is like, and Beth, my wardrobe person, who literally had to like walk me to the bathroom, press my phone for me because I couldn't do it with my fingers, like, you know, help me sip like, and like all these people, like Jennifer, the choreographer for my hand magic, so it was different than Lizzie's, like all these women that were my makeup artist, like Cindy, who did my hair, like all these people, like when I saw all the people involved, it was such a moving moment for me because I had to like surrender Dorothy, again, Wicked Witch, but just to like the collaboration of it. I mean, it's different for me. Like coming from the theater, like I pick up my props, I put my costume away, like I do, like I'm like, you just you're in control of your everything. And so there was like that was a very new feeling for me. But it once I surrendered to the collaboration, it became very moving um to me, because the source is the same. Like you're always playing pretend, like even when it's like a teeny tiny little independent, you still have to ignore the boom and the camera. And this is the same thing, like you still have to ignore the green screen and the giant fan and the that you're on wires. It's just you still are using your you still have to just be there with your partner. Like it's still, you have to listen to what your partner's giving you. So it's exactly the same engine. It's just there's more to just kind of like play pretend with.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, obviously it is such a big production, but at the end of the day, it comes down to what you and your partner are sharing on screen.
Always.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the only thing. You just have to kind of like, you just kind of have to spidey sense it out. You just have to like, you just have to clear away everything and just be able to listen. Like you just have to just listen. And I have was lucky enough to work with that beautiful Elizabeth Olsen, who is um like has had the experience in this world and is so dropped in um to just like truth in those huge circumstances and with those huge stakes, um that we were able to find, like, she kept just throwing truth balls at me. So
Absolutely.
like, it was funny because now I'm just babbling, but it was funny because we kept talking, and Matt comes from the theater, the Shackman, the director, he runs the Geffen out here, and he, um on top of everything else that he does, but he runs the Geffen Playhouse. And he, we was very important to Lizzie and I that like there was like blasts written into the script by the amazing Jack Schaefer, but we really wanted each blast to have like it was important to us to have each blast be like a specific want behind it, like that it not just be like random, that it just have like a need, that we were still trying to get what we wanted.
Yeah, I mean, one of the directives of acting across the board is kind of zeroing in on your character's intention, on
Yeah,
what they want to get out of those minutes on screen. So obviously, it goes into the blast as well. I mean, even if
has
it's a
to.
heightened, fantastical setting, that
Mhm.
is kind of the root of it. I love
It
that.
has to.
Yeah. Now, take us back for a minute, because I do want to know more generally how you would define kind of your approach to a new character as an actor. I know that you went to Northwestern for undergrad, Yale School of Drama for their graduate program. Are you pulling on kind of specific techniques? Are you more instinctual as an actor? Is it a mix of both? What are kind of the tenets of the Kathryn Hahn technique?
It's a mix of both. I mean, I'm so grateful for my education. I still think an arts education is so important. I think theater is so important, e- especially for just perspective of who you as a performer are in the food chain. Like I think it's important you pick up your props, and you hang your costume at the end of the day, and you're responsible, and you know that the crew is a part of it, like that you're not, you know, above, or that they're not separate from the making of the thing, that they're like, I think it's and that you're an ensemble, that you're a piece, that you are a cohesive piece. Like there is something about coming from the theater that is imperative to me. Um, and you know, in terms of like what I have taken in terms of building a character, it's always comes from the, it's like all you really need is in the script. I have it's taken me a long time, because sometimes like you get on the set, like in my younger years for sure, I would get on the set and just start tap dancing my heart out just to just like please the director, make the crew laugh, yada yada yada, and I would get outside myself. Oh, bracelet fell off, but I would.
You can get that, no problem.
Chain link. But I, you know, I would just do everything to try to like, you know, I would just be outside myself. Like I would forget who I was in that scene. And the older I got, the more I realized like that it is so imperative to hold on to that's what will give you that's everything, is the who you are, the given circumstances. Like I remember my acting teacher from Yale, Evan, would always say like, mark down, like write down what other people say about you in the script. Like that's also keys, like, because one cannot see themselves that clearly. Like, so write down what other people say about you. Like synthesize that. I always read a script once, and then I read it again through the lens of the eye, like through my, like, so even if it's a supporting character, like it's a way in. And then I really try to like, if it's an accent, I'll work with the accent coach on the lines, but I won't like act it, because I don't want to like get caught in a rhythm. And then I really try to just let it, like, again, I guess surrender is the word of the day. I just try to like let it go, because I meet her, the bird I'm playing, when I meet my scene partner, if that makes sense. Like that's when that's when like she arrives. Partially like she's like, I always think of that first fitting as like Christmas morning, because I'm always like, oh, it's so fun. Like I love that feeling of like, oh, okay, here she's starting to like come alive. Like I love that feeling of collaborating, and I love like what a costume designer brings to it, and I love like that collaboration, and I love when she starts to emerge, and I know that that's the direction we're headed. So then I start to work with that, and then when I finally am in the scene that first day, that's like when she arrives.
And that's kind of the magic of it, right? Where you can do all the prep work that you want. You can write in the margins about who's talking about your character. You can zero in on an accent, but you don't know what it's going to look like.
No, you can't. You shouldn't. You should always let yourself be surprised. If you have the who am I firmly in place, if you have the, like, I mean, this is all just like, you know, the fun, silly actor talk, but if you have the like,
that's what we're here for.
Good. Okay, fine. Yeah, right. Exactly. This is not the Wall Street Journal. If you have the who am I firmly in place and the what do I want firmly in place, then if, you know, and you're constantly trying to get that. And if you get it, then you want more of it. And if it like that's firmly in place, then you can just play. And then that's when you can start to also, if you're in this, the scenario calls for it, then the improv can start to happen. If like you're in a scenario in which that's cool, sometimes it's called for and sometimes it's not, but then the improv can flow because those two things are so rooted. Like I'm not an improviser out of nothing. Like I need to know who I am and what I'm going for. Otherwise it's like, wah, wah.
Fair enough. Well, looking to some of the credits that I listed up top are just from the last 5 to 7 years of you really being top billing on some of these projects, versus you look at the first chunk of years of your career and it was more scene stealing, supporting, best friend kind of types. knowing the rich training that you have, knowing today, at least as an audience member, what you're capable of bringing to the screen, did those roles ever feel less fulfilling? Were you satisfied? Where was your mind at that point of your career, and how did you kind of negotiate that?
No, I was like, I think I was acting out of fear, and just nervousness and just uh, a little out of body. And I don't feel like I had the confidence yet. I felt so much more confident on stage. Um, Even though I was tremendous, I always felt that feeling. I can't remember what actor it was, but I always felt that feeling of, why am I doing this? This is like the worst thing. I have to, I could just run away. This is awful. Like right before getting on stage. And then like, and then I would enter the scene and it would be like, and I would have that feeling before entering a scene on camera, but then I would be in there and it would just feel like dead theater. Like I had like a very hard time finding like the flow. Like sometimes it would happen, but it was like it but like sometimes it would really happen, but it was not all the time. So it felt like I always kind of was like trying to find that feeling of, that feeling of dead theater where it's just like, like nothing is flowing. And so I was always trying to find that feeling of like where it was the flow. And so
Where was the
um
turning point for that, if you could pinpoint it?
I mean, there was like a lot of like, I mean, Step Brothers was like a lot of like, that felt like flow for sure. And uh that felt like a lot of flow. There were bits and bobs and everything I did. Like there were like moments of like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, and everything, of course. For real, like the real like all the way through. Yeah, so I'd say Step Brothers for sure. And then I would say probably Afternoon Delight was a huge turning point for me. And like working with the way that Joey Soloway started working was like a huge turning point for me. Um, in what and the closest to what I felt like I could do on camera, um, as to what I could do on stage.
Yeah, fair enough. And obviously, I mean, that was a turning point, maybe from your perspective, but also you just look at the credits, and obviously that was a continued collaboration.
Mm.
What's something in hindsight that you've taken away from those years working on Transparent, I Love Dick, Afternoon Delight, that you carry with you today?
There was a sense like that I didn't think I didn't have before, of just like, I don't know. I felt I mean, I don't want to say fearless because, but but I kind of do. Like I just felt like I just felt like unembarrassed. Like I just felt like I didn't. I just felt like a fuck it. Pardon my French, but you know what I mean. I just felt like, let's try it, and I didn't feel judged. Like I felt really safe in that family to just jump in. And I felt like what we were going for with all the team, from the sound to the costumes to Joey to our cinematographer to everybody, to the cast, was just a feeling of like, let's let's go there, let's like experiment, let's like get into the nooks and the crannies and tell it from a perspective, from a different from a different lens.
Absolutely. And now, I mean, I know you're reluctant to use the word fearless, but to adopt that for a moment, just knowing now what you know now after those experiences, what kind of roles really do check your boxes? Agatha seems like so out of left field, but also
Yeah.
kind of a match made in heaven. But what really excites you about a new prospect, a new project?
Yeah, I mean, that was really out of left field. Like but and also just was so ambitious and so fun and so not what I thought of when I thought of Marvel. And it was so in such an awesome way. And it was like the fact that Kevin Feige wanted to take a leap that way, and that it was like there's so many women at the helm, and that it was a superhero story about grief. And I was, and there was a witch, like all of it. And you know, I'd said this before, but like that I had just done this chapter of playing like pretty complicated, like pretty like vulnerable, kind of messy women, you know, and there was something about rage that I was excited about tapping into. And so this kind of checked all those boxes. So I don't know, like, you know, it's a combination of the people involved, the project, um the like genre, if I haven't tried it. Like I really like have been able to kind of slip around like all sorts of different kinds. And I think that's the same feeling that I had when I was in school. Like, you know, when you're in school, you get to do any part. You know, no one like, you know, your grandma, then you're Polonius, then you're whatever. You know, and like I have been really feel like I've been able to do that with my career. Um, and so I just hope I'm able to keep doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Zeroing in again on WandaVision, I mean, as you say, it is the MCU, obviously, but it is different from what they've done in the past. Thematically, you're tackling uh, grief and rage in ways that aren't always conducive to kind of the comic book uh, structure.
Mhm.
But with this character in particular, you are also examining different decades in the TV sitcom, which I think was done brilliantly, but then also the performances have to match that. So from a
Mhm.
performer's perspective, how did each decade, or how did you kind of navigate the tone of the material and how you were going to play it, whether it's the 50s I Love Lucy kind of thing or the Malcolm in the Middle? How'd that change your performance?
Well, we had to study. I mean, you know, we studied each decade sitcom wise pretty closely. Like we had a little, you know, Matt Shackman, our director, would call it a sitcom boot camp. Like we had the luxury of a little rehearsal period. Um, and so we were able to kind of watch uh, examples of each decade sitcom wise. And we had an amazing dialect coach who kind of walked us through like vocally where the placement was in each decade. And it was really fascinating to hear a woman's voice go so from so high to kind of then more rooted, um, deeper, and looser. And um, it was so great to loosen that corset too as the decades went by. It was so really fascinating. Take off those pantyhose. Um, it felt so good. And so, and also though, that because we knew where we were going and I knew who I was like underneath it all, it was like really fun to, and the integrity of each decade was so on point, like so faithful. Like it didn't feel like a satire. It was like really, we tried really hard to make it pretty faithful, but I was able to like peek out like a little bit. It was like really fun to just kind of play a little bit of the broiling curiosity underneath. That was, it made it even more fun.
Yeah, I mean, it was complex from the get. It wasn't just rooted in the 50s sitcom. There was
No,
always kind of the
there
broiling
was like
tension.
a dark, there was like a little darkness brewing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as a final question for you, the first thing that you said in this interview was that obviously WandaVision is such a success for you, but it always goes back to the work. I mean, this is a huge high for you, but every acting career has ebbs and flows.
Sure.
Um, even in the last few years, I mean, I adored I Love Dick and Mrs. Fletcher. Those must have seemed like major highs, and then we only saw it for one season. So
Yeah.
I'm curious how you've learned over the years, and for our actors today, just for career longevity, how do you learn to kind of roll with the punches to ride the coaster of an acting
Oh,
career?
Ben. I
How
mean,
much time do I have, right?
you exactly. I mean, it's just like it is heartbreak. It's like mostly heart. You just have to like, well, it's great because then, something like this happens and you're like, "Oh, okay, like this is so, you just have to just really, really be grateful for like, and it's unexpected and like the just, because you know that it's all bananas. It's all just like luck of the draw. You have no idea. And if it, you just have to keep, I have a lot of heartbreak under my belt and a lot of gratitude under my belt. So, I read this thing about life being a Ferris wheel where it's just like you could be the top of the Ferris wheel, could be at any moment, and then it just is always going to go down. Like you never know where that basket's going to be, and you never know like what is going to be at the top. Like you have to just be in a place of gratitude all the time because it could be a high that coming and the high could leave at any like you just don't know. And so especially as an act getting into this business like uh, I mean I didn't really start working until I was in my really the work that I love doing until I was in my 30s, mid 30s. And I mean so you just have no idea. I'm 47. Like you just have literally no idea. And but I knew from when I was a kid that I was going to be an actor, that there was no other option, that there was no, like, people would ask me what my backup was, and it would be all just pretend jobs. Like there was no option for me. I was never going to be something else. And it was like not a pretty 20s. Like I mean, talk about, I'm backstage. Like I relied on you guys. Like we always talk about the no pay nudity ads in the back of the backstage and like, woo, that's like rough. But yeah, so it's just like you never, it's like, you just never know. It is a freaking crapshoot. But if you love it more than if it is just in your DNA that is who you are, then you will just know and just keep going.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I couldn't be happier for you for these last string of successes, and especially WandaVision. I know you have a few exciting things in the pipeline, so
Mhm.
excited to see what you do next. Kathryn, thanks for sharing your wisdom with us today. This was
Oh
so
my gosh, this is so my pleasure. I love you guys so much. Deep, deep, deep in my history.
well. Yeah, now you're talking about.
I missed the hard copy.
Yeah, well, you were on our cover a few years ago. We'll have to revisit and reconnect once we're doing in-person photo shoots and all that. But
Yes.
this really was wonderful. So thanks again, and
Oh, thanks
stay
so much.
well.
This meant a lot.
All right.
Thank you. Mwah, mwah.
Bye.
Stay safe.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye, honey.